The Penguins' playoff hopes partly rest in the hands of an old enemy.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am one of your hosts, Hunter Hodes. You can follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. Joined by my co-host, Patrick Damp. You can follow him on Twitter at SynonyMforWet, and you can follow the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins. Of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen/watch of the day. We are free and available on all platforms. And finally, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So the Penguins, they do their part on Monday night, extending their season for at least another day by defeating the Nashville Predators in regulation by a score of 4-2. I really liked how the Penguins played in this game. They showed that level of desperation that we really wanted them to show, and I thought they were the better team throughout the entire 60 minutes. Even though the Predators pushed back a couple of times, the Penguins were still in complete control of that game throughout those 60 minutes. We'll recap that game more in depth later on. But first, the Penguins did not get any help on the scoreboard last night. The Montreal Canadiens had a commanding 4-1 lead over the Red Wings late in the second period, but the Red Wings were able to come back a little bit late in the second. They make it 4-2 heading into the third, and then they score 2 goals in the third, including one with less than 90 seconds to go with their season on the line thanks to Lucas Raymond, and then Raymond won it in overtime to keep the Red Wings season going into tonight against the Canadiens, though that game will be on the road for the Red Wings. And then the Washington Capitals shut out the Boston Bruins 2-0 in DC, and the Bruins, they didn't even have 20 shots on goal for that game. Of course, the Bruins want to play their tails off against the Penguins over the weekend and put a 6 spot up on the Penguins, but they can't even put 20 shots and even 1 goal on the Capitals on Monday night. Thanks a lot, Boston, truly. So for tonight, the Penguins will be rooting for both the Montreal Canadiens and, yes, my friends, the Philadelphia Flyers. The Penguins have to get wins from both of those teams if they want Game 82 against the Islanders to matter on Wednesday.
Yeah, it was a tough night for scoreboard watching. The one thing that you did not bring up there is that the Islanders did get a win, which keeps this playoff race for the final wild card spot with less traffic now because the Islanders now are locked in to the third position in the Metropolitan Division. They will take on the Carolina Hurricanes and our old pal Jake Gensel in the first round. And now this is a matter of finding out who is going to take on the New York Rangers, who clinched the President's Trophy last night as the best team in the regular season. So they will have home ice throughout the Stanley Cup playoffs for however long they are in it. And then you get to tonight, and this is going to be a very stressful night of scoreboard watching for us Penguins fans, because Washington and Philadelphia is the main event, basically, because these are two teams that do still have something to play for. Obviously, Washington wants to get that spot. Philly still has a very outside chance for it, though it's much more slim than everyone else. But they are still technically alive in the race, despite falling as hard as they have over the last month or so. So that game is going to be very stressful to watch. And then you have Detroit and Montreal, who obviously Detroit still has something to play for. Montreal's got absolutely nothing to play for. So we will see what happens in that one. So it's a pretty simple task at this point for the Penguins, should they get the results they want. If the Red Wings and Capitals both lose in either regulation or a shootout or overtime, the Penguins are still alive, and all they'll have to do is win on Wednesday on the island, which, as we know, has not exactly been the easiest of tasks for our Pittsburgh Penguins.
Yes, there are two main scenarios for the Penguins heading into tomorrow if they do get the results that they need tonight. So if the Flyers and Canadiens both win in regulation over the Capitals and the Red Wings, all the Penguins will need is a single point against the Islanders. They will just have to go to overtime to clinch a playoff berth, Pat, because they will have the tiebreaker over both the Capitals and the Red Wings. Now, if the Flyers and Canadiens still win, but it's an overtime or a shootout, the Penguins will have to win on the island against an Islanders team that has nothing to play for. Those are the two main scenarios. if the Capitals win, they are in no matter what. They are actually right now the only team that has a win in scenario. They just have to beat the Flyers and they get that final playoff spot in the Eastern Conference. But if they lose and the Red Wings win, it's the Red Wings that make the playoffs. Either way, if either one of these teams win, the Penguins are officially eliminated from playoff contention.
So there's the good news, Penguins fans. We will know by the end of tonight where this season stands. We will know if Game 82 is at all relevant. We will know if the Penguins are still alive or if they are officially dead, despite you and I having declared them officially dead multiple times, and they laughed in our faces about it.
It would be very Penguins if they did get the results that they needed tonight, and then they just laid an egg on the island just because they struggle playing the Islanders on Long Island. I know, I'm sorry I put that out there, everyone. I think it would just be very peak Penguins if that were to happen. But hey, as we have found out quite a few times throughout the season, it's not over until the fat lady sings. And Penguins fans, get ready to wear orange tonight. Yes, I'm wearing orange for those watching on YouTube. I have my Virginia Tech shirt on though. But if you are in a good mood, put an orange shirt on. Doesn't even have to be a Flyers shirt, please. I'm not asking anyone to do that. But hey, put something like that on and go out there and cheer for your cross-state rival because you have to root for the Flyers to win this game. The good part is for the Penguins, at least both the Flyers and the Canadiens are at home. The Washington Capitals also did just play yesterday. The Flyers were waiting for them in Philadelphia. So that's good news, at least for that. The Flyers have to take care of business at home. But the Canadiens, man, blowing a 4-1 lead late in the second period into the third period. How much do they really want to play for with this game in Montreal? That's going to be something to watch for in that one.
Yeah, that one's going to be tough overall, just because there's one, like I said already, there's one team that has everything to play for and another team that has nothing to play for. So it's kind of a, I don't want to say low stakes game, but the stakes kind of all rest on one team's shoulders. So you know that they'll be motivated. Then you look at Washington and Philadelphia. I mean, this is a game that I really can't handicap because the Capitals are getting better, so to speak, down the stretch. They've looked a lot better than they did in the early part, in the middle part of the season. They're getting good goaltending. Alex Ovechkin has again laughed in Father Time's face and shown that he's still an elite goal scorer. They're getting good contributions up and down the lineup. But then you have the specter of the Philadelphia Flyers and John Tortorella. And if there's one thing John Tortorella is absolutely great at, it's getting blood out of a stone. He can take a team that is by all definition mid and make them good. And I think there's also a lot of youth there in Philadelphia that these guys kind of weren't ready yet. They had a lot of early success. They surprised a lot of people. And it's very much a thing when you're a young team that when you have unexpected success, you get a little bit of afraid of it just because you're not supposed to be in that situation. You don't really know how to keep it going. You maybe psych yourself out and think, oh, maybe we aren't actually good, and everything starts to spiral. But again, as annoying as he may be, Tortorella gets teams like this to places they need to go in places they probably shouldn't be. And you know that the game is in Philadelphia. They are still technically alive. That is not going to be an easy environment for the Capitals to play in.
Yeah, I agree with you. And honestly, the Flyers, they're kind of playing with house money at this point because no one even expected them to get to this point this season. We all thought they were going to be one of the worst teams in the league. Now, game 82, they still have at least a shot at getting into the playoffs, even though it looked like a sheer lock just a couple of weeks ago, even though they had that big losing streak towards the end of the season. But they still have at least a puncher's chance of getting in if things were to fall their way after beating the Capitals in regulation. But I think that'll do it for this first segment. Overall, get ready to root for the Canadiens and the Flyers yet again tonight, Penguins fans. Coming up, though, in the second segment, Pat and I are going to recap this game against the Predators and go over a lot of things that we really liked about the Penguins' effort in this game. But before we do that, we got to tell you all about FanDuel. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all in an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. That's FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, we're back here in this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am one of your hosts, Hunter Hodes, joined by my co-host, Patrick Dam. So Penguins 4, Predators 2 in a game that the Penguins really dominated from start to finish. I know the Predators did push back a couple of times, especially in the second period, but the Penguins were never in danger of letting that game slip away. They were all over the Predators from the opening puck drop. They were out shooting the Predators 20-5 at the end of the first period. They probably should have had 4 goals on UC Saros in that first period. That's how badly he was under siege in net. And they had a couple taken away. We'll just start with that, kind of with Michael Bunting. At the start, I didn't understand why that goal was taken away. But then after watching the replay quite a few times, Bunting does step on Saros' stick. So I'm like, okay, you want to call the goal back for that? I understand. But the Lars Eller one, I'm sorry, Pat. They lose me with that one. It looks like to me when I watched the replay numerous times, and yes, when I put on my glasses, it looks like Saros initiates the contact with Eller. Yeah, Eller is kind of right around the blue paint a little bit, but I still don't think he made enough contact to warrant that goal being taken away. I struggle to understand what goaltender interference is in the NHL still.
Yeah, full disclosure here, I didn't get to watch the game last night. I had beer league and it was my championship. Shout out to CIA for getting a championship. But I was listening on the radio and Mears and Bork brought up a really good point during the second disallowed goal, the second challenge. And I have to agree with what they were saying in the sense that we're getting back to the 1990s when it comes to goaltender interference and things like that, because it is a lot like the Brett Hall skate in the crease with the Dallas Stars, because there's no consistency here. And Mike Sullivan is very vocal about not liking the goaltender interference challenges because there's no standard to it. Now, this is the NHL's big challenge. They have to put a standard in place for these calls, for these challenges, in what constitutes goaltender interference and what does not, because it's a meme. It's a joke of the whole, oh, spin the wheel, we'll find out what goaltender interference means this time. But like, they have to better clearly define this, because yeah, it didn't end up swinging the outcome of the game last night. Like you said, the Penguins were thoroughly dominant throughout most of that game. It looked like the Predators didn't have any interest in even being there, let alone winning the game. But good and well, with the postseason approaching, there is going to be a coach's challenge on a goaltender interference that swings a game. And that is going to become an issue. And I'm all for replay. I'm not an anti-replay, anti-challenge guy, because yes, we should get the calls right. You should not have something swing on a missed call. But if you're going to do this, it needs to have a standard. It needs to have a bar, and it has to be able to, you have to be able to explain to the coaches, to the fans, and to the players, this happened, so it's not a goal. This didn't happen, so it counts. And the NHL, as it stands right now, can't do that.
Agreed. Even when I was reading the explanation for the second disallowed goal, I'm still like, really? Because I've seen goals like this count numerous times for as long as I've been watching this sport. So I just want to see some sort of consistency with the league when it comes to allowing goals versus disallowing goals for goaltender interference. Outside of that, Sidney Crosby did get things going. And by the way, what a beautiful goal that was by Crosby, the way that he was able to dive for the puck to get another goal this season. That was his 42nd goal overall. And again, he is so dialed in right now for this team, trying to do everything in his power to sneak this team into the playoffs as the number 8 seed in the conference. That was just an amazing individual effort. Saros had no idea where the puck was. And hey, puck don't lie, baby.
No, it does not. And aside from being a Penguins fanboy that wants to see his favorite team in the postseason, I want to see Sidney Crosby in the playoffs right now, just for the way he's playing. I have no idea if this team could handle the Rangers in a series. I like their chances, and I don't want to put the cart too far ahead of the horse here, but if they were to get in and take on the Rangers, I don't know if they could win, but I think they're a better matchup than most people think they are for the New York Rangers. But the main thing is the level at which Sidney Crosby is playing right now. I want to see that in the playoffs because he is having the kind of second half of a season, and really just a full season, if we're going to be honest here, of where he is pretty much dominant and he is taking games over and he is making such an impact that there is a world where you could see him willing this team to a couple of wins in a playoff series, and the opposing coach just goes, I mean, what do you want me to say? Sidney Crosby's the best player. I can only do so much.
Right. And I think when you look at all the other teams that are fighting for that final playoff spot, I still think the Penguins would put the biggest scare into the Rangers. I don't think the Capitals pose that much of a threat to the Rangers. I mean, Charlie Lindgren, sure, in goal. Alex Ovechkin can score at any time, but I still like the Penguins overall as a team more than the Capitals. I think they're also more consistent than the Red Wings. I think the Rangers would also have quite an easy time with the Flyers. I know the Rangers would probably beat the Penguins in a playoff series, but I still think the Penguins have the best shot at completing an upset just because of the way Crosby's playing and based on the way a lot of the top players on the Penguins are playing right now. But hey, they've dug their own grave, at least right now, and we'll have to see if their season continues into Wednesday. But completely agree about Sidney Crosby. And also, Rangers fans don't even want to see Sid. They know that Crosby has cooked the Rangers numerous times throughout his career. I think they would rather see any other team than the Penguins overall. I also thought Erik Karlsson had a tremendous effort in this game. After having a pretty lousy performance against the Bruins over the weekend, he was awesome in this one, great in all three zones. His slap shot goal was awesome. Saros had no chance on that. And then did you see his slap pass to Emil Bemstrom in the third period? That was vintage stuff from Erik Karlsson. It honestly reminded me of 2017 Erik Karlsson with the way he was skating in the offensive zone, the way he let that pass go. Bemstrom had a Alex Ovechkin release on that one time. I don't know where that came from when it comes to Emil Bemstrom. It's nice seeing the fourth line contribute, but all in all, Karlsson was great. The numbers backed that up, and it was a much needed bounce back performance from 65.
Yeah, that was a great game by Erik Karlsson. He would, like you said, I can't really add a ton to that. He was very good in all three zones. As for the Bemstrom goal, I mean, that was the thing we heard about him when they got him, was that his biggest asset is his shot, and we saw it on that goal. He had a very good release. He timed it perfectly, and I don't have any misgivings about him suddenly becoming a key contributor or even a good depth piece, but when that is your biggest strength, is your shot and your release, you have to do that more often. And we saw that there. And I think the clock has pretty much run out on him on becoming some sort of a contributor moving forward with the Penguins. But that is kind of a missed opportunity for him, that he didn't get a lot of shots. He didn't put a lot of shots to the net. And if that's your strength and everybody knows that's your strength, fire everything at the net and see what happens. And last night, we kind of saw that from him. It was good to get some fourth line contributions. I also got to give a little bit of a shout out to Nedeljkovic for a bounce back last night. I don't think he was tremendous. I don't think he was stellar or anything like that. But, the last couple of games that he started, he looked positively gassed. And last night, he was back in control. He did what he needed to do. Was he the reason they won? No, the skaters absolutely skated circles around the Predators, but when he needed to be there, he was there. There were no back-breaking goals. There were no bad decisions. He seemed like he could see the puck once again, which is his biggest strength. He has great vision on the puck. So overall, I thought he had a solid bounce back as well.
I agree. And if I want to nitpick just something really small, I think he could have had that Philip Forsberg shot, but that's, again, something really small in the grand scheme of things. He had a .933 save percentage, really good performance from Nedeljkovic, and I assume he will get the start on Wednesday on the island against the Islanders. Another player that I did want to shout out, just because we have to be fair on the show, I thought Riley Smith had a really strong effort in this game. That release that he had to make it 3-1 for the Penguins, really nice job taking that puck from Eller and firing that top cheese past Saros. It was one of Smith's better games this season, and it still leaves me wondering where this has been for most of the season. But I will shout him out. I thought he had a good performance in this game.
Yeah, it's kind of the tale of the whole season. Riley Smith and even Erik Karlsson to an extent kind of sum up this entire Penguins season, where it's just missed opportunities and wondering what could have been, as they have these games where they look really good, but then they have these stretches where they're somewhere between disappointing, pedestrian, and even bad. And I feel bad because I feel like Smith had a lot of potential, had a lot of upside. He should have been a key contributor in the top six, and he just wasn't this year.
Agreed. And I loved the trade at the time. I didn't really care that they gave up a third to get him, but the trade has just turned into a disaster based on the level that he's played at for most of the season. I know not last night, but for most of the other games overall. One more player I do want to shout out before we end this segment and look at how the Penguins got here overall. Jackson Ivany, man, he's continuing to play like a better version of Chad Weedle as this team's number 6 defenseman. There were countless times where a Predators player was coming in one-on-one on him, and he was able to take the puck away like it was nothing. He used his active stick beautifully. He was great in his own zone. He knew when to pinch in the offensive zone. He's really growing on me as a player, and as of right now, he should be the favorite to get that number 6 job for the Penguins next season.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's been one of their better defensive defensemen of the last few weeks. It's a typical 6th defenseman. He doesn't do anything extraordinary. He doesn't jump off the page at you, but he's a guy that when you get to the end of the season, you look at his body of work and you go, you know what? He was solid all year long. He's a guy that I bring up a player like him all the time. He's a player that they are at their best when you don't notice them. You don't think about them. They just do their job, and that's it.
Very similar to Chad Weedle, and when Cody Ceci was here, it was the same with him as well. But I think that will do it for the second segment. Coming up in the final segment, Pat and I are going to take a look at how the Penguins got to this point, and honestly, how if they had just kept a few leads in the third period, they probably would have clinched a playoff spot by now. But before we get to that, we got to tell you all about Sleeper, which is the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports, and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. You can do this by yourself. You can do this with your friends. You can do this with your family. Heck, you can even do this with your significant other, and you're not even limited to just hockey on Sleeper. You can do NFL, NBA, MLB, and college football all on Sleeper. All you have to do is pick studs like Connor McDavid, Sidney Crosby, Alex Ovechkin, Nathan McKinnon, Nikita Kucherov, and pick whether they'll record goals, assists. You can throw plus minus in there. You can throw goalies in there and do saves and all that good stuff. And to win a 100 times bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, Penguins fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. All right, we're back here in this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am one of your hosts, Hunter Hodes, joined by my co-host, Patrick Damp. So we're going to look at for this, how do the Penguins get in the situation where they find themselves 1 point out? I know we could spend probably 30 minutes diving into every single reason, but we don't have that type of time for this episode. I do, however, want to bring up a few games that really stand out to me that could be differences in the Penguins making the playoffs versus them not making the playoffs. Number one, that Ducks game at the beginning of the season. They basically have a 5-on-3 for the final minute and a half of regulation. Heck, they had that same 5-on-3 with less than 30 seconds to go. They give up a shorthanded goal with less than 15 seconds in regulation. They don't even get a point out of that game. If they just get a single point out of that game, they are in that playoff spot right now, and they control their own destiny heading into Wednesday. It doesn't even matter if the Red Wings or the Capitals win tonight, Pat. If the Penguins just win that game on Wednesday, they will be in the playoff spot because they own the tiebreaker over both the Red Wings and the Capitals. You have the 4-0 blown lead to the Avalanche. If you're able to get that extra point, that's 2 more points overall. If you have that extra point against Columbus after you blew that 3-1 lead just a couple weeks ago, boom, you have 3 more points. We can keep doing that for Calgary as well. You lost that game in regulation. You didn't even get a point out of that game after having a 3-1 lead with less than half a period to go in that game against the Flames. Just so many wasted opportunities in the third period where they're not even getting to overtime. That's going to be one of the main reasons why they don't get in if they don't get help tonight.
And I know it's a horse we've beaten to death, resurrected, beaten it to death again, and then resurrected it a third time and beat it to death a third time, but I'm going to do it once more. I got to give a shout out to Matt at Yinzer on Twitter. He had this up a couple days ago. I had it bookmarked just in case. And I want to go through how bad the power play was this season. Obviously, we know the top line numbers of it being in, I think it's still 30th or 31st, one of the two. I didn't look this morning, but against Chicago in the opener, they lose 4-2. Power play goes 0-2. The Anaheim game that you brought up, they went 2-7. They lost 4-3. They lost to the Rangers 1-0 in November. Power play goes 0-5. They lose to Buffalo in November. They lose 3-2. Power play goes 0-2. They lose in a shootout to Philadelphia. The Penguins blow a third period lead. Power play goes 0-5. And then another Philadelphia loss. The power play goes 0-3, and they lose 2-1 in overtime. They lose in overtime 5-4 to Ottawa. The power play goes 1-7. They lose 4-3 to Vancouver in overtime. Power play goes 0-4. They lose in overtime 3-2 to Carolina. Power play goes 0-4. They lose 3-2 to Vegas. Power play goes 0-1, and they blew a third period lead. So there were so many opportunities. This power play didn't have to be first in the NHL. It didn't have to be the best unit. It should have been top 10, but if they're even average, if they get one or two more power play goals in these games, they're stacking even more points, and they're probably in the position that the New York Islanders are right now, if not in the position where the Carolina Hurricanes are right now. So at this point, it's blown leads in the power play that pretty much derailed this season. You can talk about any other myriad of problems. You can say, oh, Karlsson wasn't a good trade, or Jari wasn't great all year, and he wasn't. You can talk about the coaching staff. You can talk about Kyle Dubas. But at the end of the day, in the biggest moments of this season, when this team needed their biggest players, and I include Sidney Crosby on this because he's part of it, even though he's having a tremendous season, they didn't show up.
Another big thing that you didn't hit on during that is their play in overtime. They have lost 9 of 13 games just decided in overtime. I'm not even counting shootouts when I say that. I did not think their overtime struggles were going to get worse after how bad they were last year. I also did not think that they were going to blow this many multi-goal leads, especially in the third period, after the way they struggled last year. I was wrong on both accounts, and if they end up missing and they don't get the help, those are going to be the two main reasons, along with the power play, why they are not in the playoffs for a second straight year. They've been there for quite a bit of the season. I know they've had a great comeback over the last 3 weeks, but I also did say when they were thinking about maybe pulling this off, you couldn't lose in regulation. Well,
yeah,
they lost that game to Boston. That was the one thing they really couldn't afford to do just because of the situation they put themselves in, is losing regulation. I know 8-1-3 through their last 12 games. That is awesome. But that regulation loss, man, it's such a killer overall. But those 2 points, sure, in a vacuum, that could be at least a bit of the difference for the Penguins getting in. But I'm not even thinking about that game overall, just because they've needed to be perfect throughout these last few weeks. I look at all of the multi-goal blowing leads, especially in the third period. I look at their play in overtime where it looks like they have no idea what they're doing. And I look at the power play, especially when they had ample opportunity to make a change behind the bench in terms of Todd Reirden for a power play coach, and they decided to stick with their guns and keep the coaching staff intact. I think that's another reason why they may miss the playoffs as well. Just a lot of wasted opportunities this season, just like last season.
That's really the best way to describe it, is it's just a season of missed opportunities, because we see it right now. The Metropolitan Division is garbage. There's 2 good teams. There's the Hurricanes and the Rangers, and everybody else is fighting for 3rd place and 4th place and 5th place. And this was a season where, yeah, maybe the core isn't as great as it once was. I think that's fair to say, but you had a wide open division. You had a 3rd spot there for the taking. let's not pretend like the Islanders are still the ironclad Islanders that they were just a few years ago. They're a completely different team now. And there's no reason for them logically to be in third in the Metropolitan Division, but they are because it was a season of missed opportunity for teams like the Penguins, who just would not take advantage of being in a weak division and getting themselves into the postseason.
100%. And as Adam Gretz said on Twitter Monday night, help yourselves. And they sure didn't this season. And now you got to rely on two teams to help you out and extend your season for at least another day heading into Wednesday on the island. But I think that would do it for this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. Thank you all so much for taking the time to listen to / watch this episode. Pat and I will be back on Wednesday to preview this game against the Islanders, see if the Penguins are still alive, and touch on everything else relating to this hockey team as we get to the final game of the regular season. I can't believe I'm saying this, but go Canadians, and yes, go Flyers tonight. Yep, I know. Pat just vomited on live recording, everyone. But again, that'll do it for this one. Thank you all so much for taking the time to listen to / watch this one. We'll be back on Wednesday.